What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Pedigo Zoo. It's a rainy, muggy day out, and I figured I'd do a quick video on how to pretty much tear down a G-Shock, the dw5600, the squares, clean it, and how I kind of prolong their life cycle just by making sure they don't get too dirty or make sure nothing's broken inside them, and just generally maintain and take care of my G-Shocks. I put them through hell, so I want to make sure that they're good to go, If that's interesting to you, stay tuned. Or if you're wondering how to get the bezel off or something, I'll go over strap removal, bezel removal, how I clean mine, and a couple other things. So let's get started. Alright, here we are. Usually I start with taking the strap off. So what you're going to need is a spring bar tool, specifically the V-style ones. Oh, my bad. The V-style ones. If you've never taken spring bars off of a watch before, a G-Shock would not be the one I'd recommend. This is a tricky thing, even for a guy who's taken plenty of spring bars out. Because they are just hidden. As you can see, it's not an easy task. Sometimes it's easier to get a blade in there, but I don't like doing that. I'm gonna have to do this one off camera, it looks like. Come on, little buddy. Alright, well, this is gonna be more of a trick, but I thought I might have to stop it. But you see this little, let's get the light, this little hole in here? Your spring bar's in there. Now what you're going to do is you're going to get the V of your spring bar tool in there. Let's see if it'll focus. Come on, focus. You'll get the V of your spring bar tool in there above the little notch on the spring bar, and you're going to push it in, depressing the spring, and then pop your band out. I'm going to do this off camera because I can't see very well. Then I'll come back showing you the spring bar and how I did it. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. Spring bars are notoriously small on G-Shocks, like very small, as you can see. So what I was doing was, let's hope it'll focus on me. Okay. So let's try something a little different here. Let's use this paper towel I have sitting here. Try to make it as obvious as possible. Okay. So, if you see this, oh, that's problematic. Alright. The spring bar, if you see these little notches, these little grooves right here, all I was doing was taking my V-style pick, just getting in there above the notch. I pushed it towards the middle of the pin, and what that does is, if you can see, it'll spring. So that pushes it in just enough, kind of like a toilet paper roll, that you can pop it out of the receiver. Let's see if you can see the holes it's in. There's some holes down in there, and that's where the pins go. So then you pop your bracelet off, and now you're left with just a little dinky G-Shock. Nothing. Next I'm going to do is take off the bezel. And what I need for that is a little screwdriver. A little jeweler's screwdriver, or I think I've heard them called precision screwdrivers in the past. Hopefully this one fits. It might not. Pretty sure an eyeglass screwdriver would work as well. Doesn't look like that one's going to fit for me, so I'll be right back while I get a smaller screwdriver. Alright, I'm back with a screwdriver that fits it. All I'm doing is just taking these screws out. There's 4 on this bezel, and these are the screws that hold the bezel. You can see how tiny they are. Now, what you're going to want to do is grab yourself a little bowl with a lid. When you get these out, you're going to drop them in the bowl. I'd put my spring bars in there too. They are very easy to lose. So, as soon as you're done, put the lid back on it. You don't really need to tighten it down, but I'm going to because I'm not losing pieces to this watch. And take the next one out. I'm sure it goes without saying, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Sometimes the bezel will be moved over the top of the screw. So with your screwdriver, you got to move the bezel out of the way so you can get to your screw. Once the screw is extracted, it goes in the bowl. The bowl gets closed. That way nothing can happen where I lose the screws. Alright. Third one. Uh-oh. I know on certain G-Shocks or certain square G-Shocks they make these screwless where you kind of just pull the bezel on and off. But this is the economy version of the 5600 and a relatively, I'd say relatively new, but might not actually be. I think it was made in 2017. Not entirely certain. I've had it its whole life. I've taken it apart about 3 times, I'd reckon. Alright. Sorry, I got a runny nose. Haven't been feeling great today. Let's see. So next, you can just kind of pop the bezel off. There's a little bit of pulling you got to do to get over the buttons. See? Then, boom. Look at that hideous mess. It's dirty. It's got hair. I know for a fact it's got sunblock in it. You can see there's some dirt on the back too. And this is why I take them apart. You see how dirty that is? That's probably about a year of buildup. I don't take them apart often, but I take them apart to clean them thoroughly. So, now we can get all our tools, set them on top of our bin, push the bin back, get it out of our way. We're going to take the straps, the watch, and the bezel. I got a bowl of warm water with Dawn dish soap, specifically the pink stuff. It's what my wife likes to use. I believe it's got like a lotion or something in it. I'm not 100%. But I don't find that it hurts anything on a watch. In fact, whatever it uses to hydrate your skin might actually help hydrate the rubber a little bit, but I'm unsure of that. Now, take my toothbrush and I just scrub it a little bit. And the scrubbing is the part that's going to clean this. You know, the outside's going to be dirty, but the inside's probably going to be much worse. Because that's where it's going to build up, is against your wrist. Then I'd take it over to the sink and rinse it off. Again, I'd use warm water, but not hot. These parts are plastic. Alright, once you're content with how much gunk you got off it, I just drop it into the bottom of the bowl of water. Now that just lets it soak a little bit. The only piece I won't do that to is the actual movement, which is this one. I'm not going to soak that one. It can handle it because it can handle up to 200 meters water resistance, but if you don't need to submerge a watch, or you're not diving or whatever, don't submerge the watch. I wear this one in the shower. It's how I get it clean day to day, because it gets pretty messed up. And it's fine for that. It can handle the soap, it'll handle the water, it'll handle whatever else I'm doing in there. The grease and shit running off my arms from a good day's work. it handles it just fine. It's handled pools. Like I said, I just took it. It got sunblock in it because I just took it to the water park with my wife. But the only reason I'm submerging these pieces is because it's not going to hurt them, and God knows they need cleaned. The bezel, again, just toothbrush. It's a little harder of a shape to get all the nasty out of, but I'm sure you'll do just fine. Just kind of rinse it off. Now, because this piece is not accessible unless I take apart the entire watch, I do a couple scrubs because I want this sucker spotless while it's on my wrist, because it will not get cleaned until I take it off again. And I do not take these things apart that often. Typically, this will happen around battery changes. I'll completely disassemble the watch, but I'm not using the stopwatch function on this watch as much now, so I don't have to change the battery hardly at all. And I find that Casio grossly underestimates how long their batteries last, because I know they advertise this one with a 2-year battery. I'm telling you, it's lasted me longer than that. If you use the stopwatch a shit ton, yeah, your battery's going to die faster. But I'm not going to complain about 2 years of battery life when you can't barely get a day out of your smartphones anymore. And I know the smartwatches are a little better. I heard Garmin's will get you a month, but that's a month. Whereas this, I can set and forget for 2 years and not have to worry about it not being turned on. Alright, now for the movement. You can see how dirty this guy is. And it's completely capable of being submerged, so if you want to go that route, go ahead. I'm not going to. I'm just going to take a little brush. Just little circles. Try to be careful around the buttons. Try not to press them while it's wet. The manual actually says do not depress the buttons when the watch is wet, because that can break the seal that keeps the thing waterproof. I'm sure I have done it. I have pressed the buttons while the sucker's wet. It has caused me no harm to the watch. Nothing at all. But in the very slight chance that it could hurt this watch, I'm not going to be pressing the buttons while it's wet. So meaning, before you jump in the water, make sure it's on whatever mode you want it on. If you want it on timekeeping, make sure it's on timekeeping before you jump in. If you want it on a stopwatch, make sure it's on the stopwatch before you jump in. And like, once you hop out, throw a towel on it and then stop it, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. However, it's something to keep in mind. All this sweat, steel, grind dust, just building up, man. Every now and again, you gotta just wash it down. Hope I'm in frame. I hadn't been looking. My bad if I wasn't. You just gotta wash it all off, 'cause it gets nasty. I'm gonna rinse it real quick. Like I said, I'm gonna make sure this thing is spotless before it goes back together, because I don't get to reach a lot of these places very often. So if it's not spotless when I put it back together, that dirt could possibly corrode parts of the watch before I get it apart again. As you can see, it doesn't take me very long. The hardest part is getting those damn spring bars out of it. Those damn spring bars are the bane of my existence. Now, good time, if you have any scratches on the face. I don't right now. I have a couple pits from weld sparks. There's nothing I can really do about those. But if you have any scratches on the face of it, get your poly watch and just buff those out. Poly Watch is like a little mild abrasive that'll clean them right up. I've seen guys use headlight repair kits and like clean the face of their watch up and get rid of the scratches. That works too, but while it's disassembled, it is way easier to work on. Alright, so now going to lay out a couple paper towels. Make sure I got a dry work area. This does get messy if you're not doing it over a sink, and unfortunately I don't have a way to record over my sink right now. I might fix that in the future. Just lay everything out on some paper towels. Rinse them off from all the bubbles and stuff. Lay everything out. Dry your hands. And we'll get to drying these off. Get ready for reassembly. If the water was gross, I'd show you, but there's not really that much dirt and stuff here to have made the water gross. And I just kind of pat dry. I do the bezel first so I can give the inside of the bezel a little bit of time to dry out, because it's hard to get into all those little nooks and crannies in there. So if I oh man, I really hope this is all in shot. I think I've been screwing that up. Dry off the bezel real good, drop it down, then I'll dry off the movement. Just make real good sure I'm getting it dry. Now, I know this isn't that big of a deal because it always dries on my wrist after a shower and stuff. Can't get to the inside of it, but also kind of checking to make sure I didn't miss anything, you know. Alright, that's cleaned. Let's just kind of pull these dry. These are not as important. You can always get replacement bands, and probably in the life of this watch I will replace the bands, but these are the original to the watch right now, and I have no qualms with the replacing bands. You know, this is a $50 watch that's lasted me almost more than 3 years, way more than 3 years, maybe, I don't remember when I bought it. But for a watch that's $50 and has lasted me this long through absolutely horrific situations, I mean, I used to buy Timexes. They wouldn't last me a year. Some of them wouldn't even last me 6 months in my industry. So for a $50 watch to last me as long as this one has, I'm grateful to it. Love Casio for actually making a product that you can service yourself. I mean, when I go to replace the battery, I'll probably do a video, but it's just pull it out, pull the battery out, set the new one in, reset the watch, and then put the screws back in. And then boom, you're good to go. And those batteries are cheap, so just get a final look at how clean that watch is. Let's get a final look at the inside of the bezel, because that was gross. And the straps, not that there's going to be any difference really. Some of mine have been discolored a little bit, like up here it's discoloring from bleach, just road worn, so not too worried about that. I'm going to start the reassembly process. There's a little moisture in it, but as I said, this thing dries on your wrist every time you wash your hands or go shower. So next thing I want to warn you about is the words on my G-Shock bezel. You still see G-Shock there, but I believe it says protection on top is completely worn away. Not that it would focus if I wanted it to. There it goes. Protection's worn away. So you want to make sure that it's oriented right, because you can fit these on upside down and then it's just dumb every time you look at it on your wrist. So make sure it matches the numbers. I put this one side on first, make sure the buttons are in place, like that. And I just kind of press the other side on. Let's do that again in case wasn't perfectly in frame. So you get the one side on, you just press. It kind of pops in. Now you do not have to put the screws back into the bezel if you're planning on tearing this down a lot. Say you work with some I don't know, you work with feces, or like animal feces, or you work with other unsavory things and you want to be able to pop this off and wash it more regularly. Don't put those screws back in, because it is literally just get your fingernail under there, pop it up, take it off. Whereas you saw me struggling to even find a screwdriver that would fit it. I just had to find a sharper screwdriver, but that's all. So do what you like, don't do what you don't like. I'll put the screws back in it because it's more important to me that the bezel stays on than having to clean behind it. Alright. You're going to end up inserting the screw into the bezel, and then you're going to have to just kind of wiggle it around with the screwdriver until you find your hole. Because you don't want to cross thread you don't want to cross thread these little guys, because there will be no coming back from that. Jewelers might have taps that small, but I know damn well welders don't. I am not a jeweler. Alright. Now don't crank these down. Literally all they do is hold this piece of rubber on. So get it as tight as it needs to be, and then don't go a single quarter turn past that. Uh-oh. You will drop these screws. Do it in a place that you're not afraid to, or place that might be easy to find. I know they make jewelers mats and stuff that are in a certain color that you can spot metallic pieces on super simple. I don't have one of those. Again, I'm not a jeweler. I'm a welder fabricator who just takes care of his things. And I know you look at a watch and you're like, well, who cares? But I spent $50 on this watch. And frankly, for me, if a $50 watch will last me the rest of my life, I don't really need to buy any other watch. Now, I do have a small watch collection. I have a little Casio collection. I mean, I've got a different Casio on today. This is the pedometer one. But that's for me to have fun with. It's not exactly reliable. Or not exactly like a reliability thing. This watch, this G-Shock, probably does more for me than I need out of any watch. It has a stopwatch, has a countdown timer, day, date, year if you go into adjusting it. It holds the time within like 3 seconds within 6 months. So it's not gonna go off on you. Like certain mechanicals hold 3 seconds a day, or like plus or minus a couple seconds a day. It's accurate, it's trustworthy, it's reliable. It will take the beating and keep going. It can be submerged. I don't technically need another watch other than this G-Shock. It's a good G-Shock, works extremely well. They've been designed since the 80s. In fact, I think these dw5600s are the oldest living relative of the ones released in the 80s. They no longer make the one that was released in the 80s for obvious reasons, but these dw5600s are the closest thing to what they released in the 80s. Alright. Now I have put the spring bar back in the strap. I'm going to try to seat one side of the spring bar. I'm going to take the flat part of my V spring bar tool. I'm going to take the flat part. I'm going to push sucker in. Oh, didn't get it. This is something you're going to have to just do a bunch of times. I know even some jewelers who have Oh, and you want to avoid that. That can be very bad when they launch out of there because they're spring loaded. That can be very bad. If you lose it, you're going to have to buy another one, and these G-Shocks have notoriously small spring bars. I want to say they're like a 10 millimeter or something. So not every jeweler is going to have them. And then sometimes it might make you pay a premium to order it. Or you can get them on Amazon if you're willing to wait a couple days. Okay. I might do this off camera because there's no sense in you guys watching me struggle with it. You will struggle with it unless you're just some sort of like jewelry god. Alright, I'm gonna do this off camera. I'm having a little trouble. Alright, that took embarrassingly long to pull off, but the best, once you get them in and you're checking, just pull like this. If it pops out, then it wasn't in the hole. G-Shocks are notorious for being difficult to remove and put bracelets on because of that. However, it can be done. That's why I usually only tear this thing down once a year, maybe, if that. Sometimes once every 2 years, just whenever it starts getting really grody and I'm looking at it and it's just beyond the normal discoloration and I can just see shit in there. So that's how you take apart and clean a G-Shock. I hope this helped. I don't have a magic trick for the bands. Some people might. I don't know. I've thought about making a little piece of thin steel to slip in there on both sides so I can just depress the spring bar and slide it in, pull the metal out, but haven't gotten around to that. Not even sure that would help any. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Anyway, I hope your G-Shock looks as good as new or as close as you can get it, and take care now. Bye.